Welcome, everybody, to Film Knobs out there in podcast land. Hope you're having a great day, night, or whatever, wherever you may be. My name is Steve Benny, and sitting across from me,
Barry B-Man Benny.
I'm not really across from you, but I am Richard, the Morganator Morgan.
Okay, so we're going to talk about some algebraic equations and geometry later on.
Well, we're just trying to give everybody an accurate visual of where we are.
I'm going to make a note to self. I'm going to have to exactly describe where Rick is in relation to.
I would say about 3.5 feet to your right is what I would say.
Okay, so I hope that clears it up for everybody. So how you guys doing?
Wonderful.
Fantastic.
Did you see any movies lately? Anything cool? TV shows?
I saw Hellfest. Yeah. Good, that's a frustrating movie. It looked pretty good. The lighting was interesting. Some of the shots were interesting. The premise was very interesting, but it just didn't quite gel.
Didn't quite work for you?
No.
Rick, have you seen anything cool?
I saw most of Once Upon a Deadpool.
You saw most
of it.
Most of it. What'd you think about it? And explain to me the most.
Right. That could be very bad if you're just like, I'm done.
I saw most of it.
Well, I was at a friend's house, and they had already started the movie, but when I got there...
Did they know you were coming?
Yeah, but...
What? So they just...
Yeah.
He'll catch up.
Yeah.
Okay, wait. Were they... Okay, they knew you were coming. Were you supposed to watch the movie with them?
We had talked about it like a week before, but I don't know if that was the plan for this arrival.
Guys, I believe we explained what a knob is at the beginning of the show, our little intro. There's where the other definition of knob
is. No, okay, so do I know this person?
Yes.
Does it begin with a J?
Yes.
Okay. You know who you are.
Or not?
You know who you are. What were you thinking? Let Rick watch the whole movie next time. Come on.
And I won't spoil it for you. Well, you've seen it though.
I have not seen it.
Yeah,
I know.
Now you're talking about the Once Upon a Time version.
I have not seen Deadpool 2.
Deadpool 2.
Any of them. Yeah. Any iteration of Deadpool 2. I have seen Deadpool, but I have not seen too many movies. I did watch Bandersnatch.
And
really cool idea. The whole interactive thing. I see. Okay, somehow I was the only person on the planet. I'm kind of embarrassed to admit this, but I have this thing to where I like to avoid hearing anything about movies.
Yes, you do.
Especially
I had no idea.
Right.
Makes it somewhat hard to talk about movies.
Well, I'm in the completely wrong business. Somehow I've got to stay informed but uninformed enough so it doesn't spoil the movies I really want to see. But somehow I avoided hearing anything about the interactive part of Bandersnatch. And so I run it through the PlayStation, right? And so I turn it on Netflix, and I don't even see where it says interactive at the beginning or at the top. And and my controller is sitting next to me. And next thing you know, it starts going zzz, zzz, vibrating. And I see like the circle of death, that spinning circle of death that comes on, your computers, TV, or whatever.
Right.
I'm
so you thought something was loading.
Yeah, I thought something was loading. Something was loading or wrong. And then I see like this prompt. The prompt at the bottom. And I was like, oh, what? Is this thing wanting me to... what? Yes or no? And I was like, oh my gosh, this is interactive. So overall, I thought, man, this is pretty cool. It's like Choose Your Adventure books, which I've heard there's a lawsuit involved a little bit.
Really?
Yeah.
I haven't heard that. That's interesting.
Yeah, that's another story. I've been meaning to really dig into that, but there's a lawsuit involved with the Choose Your Adventure books and the Netflix thing. So.
Wow.
I don't know how they'll get away with that, but
Netflix could just buy Choose Your Adventure.
Netflix will borrow another $1 billion and buy them out,
or raise their subscription rates again. Wait, they just did.
Well, yeah, which they just did. I'm not going to cancel Netflix, but come on, Netflix, please. So when we left off last time, we were talking about the 2019 movies and what's coming up. But 2019 was so loaded that we actually had to cut the show and stop because we ended up in the month of June is where we left off, and then we'll pick back up in July. I don't know about you guys, but when I looked at the whole slate of movies for this year, I got pretty excited. What'd you guys think?
I don't know if I'm as excited as you are. I'm not quite as much the tentpole, big movie kind of guy as both of you are. I think there's definitely a lot to look forward to this year, and there'll be some of the smaller movies that I don't know about yet will come along, and I'll go, oh, there we go. But
Let's wait and see a little bit.
Yeah, it's going to be it should be a good year at the box office.
Yeah,
we talked a little bit about that last time too, about will this year outpace last year, and there's a real good chance. And can Disney hit the big 30%? Will be
no.
Somewhat facetiously.
So what was it again? It was 26, right? So last year.
So what do you guys say we pick it up? Start off where we left off, month of July.
All right, let's get our independence on here.
With a little movie called Annabelle 3. Comes out July 3rd.
Another sequel.
Amazingly.
and around July the 4th? No.
It is an interesting time to release a horror film, right?
It is. It is a little bit. But this is, maybe not just any horror. This franchise is pretty big, so I can see it, but it is a little interesting.
I love it that they're bringing back the Warrens, Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga from the Conjuring part of the series, but that should help it out. Did you see, I know Rick is not the biggest fan of horror, so I'm not going to ask him. Did you see, Barry, the Annabelle?
I've not seen, I'll be honest, I've just seen the Conjuring movies and The Nun. I have seen neither of the Annabelle movies, so.
Yeah. The first one, Annabelle is, Annabelle 2 was a big step up.
Yeah, I remember critically that's what, across the board it looked like. The first one was kind of ragged on pretty hard, and the second one, the reviews were much stronger. And so your take is pretty much the same.
Yeah. I was 100% agree with the critics, and it was Annabelle 2 was a solid movie. Annabelle 3, I got high hopes.
Well, it's certainly with bringing Vera and Patrick back, that's enough to get me interested in it. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think that as far as how the timeline goes in this story, that it will necessarily hurt too much to have missed Annabelle 1 and 2.
Probably
right?
not.
Probably not.
Yeah. I don't know too much about the plot yet.
I'll catch it. I'll end up catching both those movies before I go see this one. But
then we look a couple of days later, and a little bitty movie comes out called Spider-Man: Far From Home.
Spider-Man sounds like some kind of superhero. Movie. Is that?
Somebody may say this may be a successful film. I don't know who that would be.
Yeah, this should be pretty big. I know the trailer. I don't know how long ago it dropped, but I myself just watched the trailer, and I was pretty happy with what I saw. It looked pretty intriguing to me.
Were you more or less? I mean, was it like on the scale of like, hey, mm-hmm. That really got me pumped, or like?
Actually, it really got me pumped a little bit, and I enjoyed Homecoming. I thought it was a solid, not the best superhero movie ever, but definitely a solid and likable movie. And so I already kind of was interested in the sequel, but after I saw the trailer, I was like, yeah, I'm definitely.
Having an actor like Jake Gyllenhaal, I mean, come on, play Mysterio. That right there, to me, was like enough to go see the movie.
Yeah, Gyllenhaal, for me, personally, the last few years, he's really stepped up his game. His performances the last few years, what, Prisoners, and one I know that we've talked about that's probably one of the more overlooked movies of the last few years, Nightcrawler.
Oh man, yeah. Speaking of Nightcrawler, I think it's coming out. Don't quote me on the exact date.
You know that I will. If you say something,
right?
I'm just gonna.
I think it's February 1st. But Velvet Buzzsaw, so it's from Dan Gilroy, who did Nightcrawler, and Jake's in it, and then Rene Russo.
Oh, so Renee's back as well, because
yeah,
she was also in Nightcrawler. I thought there's a couple other interesting names in there, right?
Yeah, I'd have to look at the whole cast.
It's going to be that's an interesting one.
Another Netflix release too.
Really?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Netflix is killing it. They are killing it lately. That Roma, they had of course Bandersnatch,
Bird Box.
Oh my gosh,
and
Bird Box.
There's going to be another big one we'll talk about later on in the show coming up. It's even money-wise, even bigger, shockingly.
It is. It's amazing what they've done in the past year, and really over the past couple of months. But this past year, they've gone to a whole another level. And with the Oscars coming up, if Roma can get some wins, they're just going to be on a whole another.
It'll be interesting to see how Roma plays over through the whole Academy. I know that there's probably a few grumbles about how you couldn't catch Roma for very long in the theaters, not very many cities. I know where we're at, we didn't even get a chance to see it in the theater. So, it'll be interesting to see how it plays there.
Then coming out on the 19th, another mega movie. And you guys want to guess what that is?
The Lion King.
The Lion King.
Did you cheat? He said guess. Did you look at your notes?
Yes.
Rick? Oh, okay. Well, at least you're honest about your cheating.
You have all these movies memorized.
I do. All 100+ movies coming out this year, yes.
So what do we think about this one?
I don't know. I'm not so. Look, I've seen, of course, loved the original. Good lands. Who doesn't love the Lion King, the original movie? I've seen it on stage. Wonderful stage play. I don't know, though. I don't know how I'm feeling about this one.
Did you see the original, Rick?
Long time ago, yeah.
Yeah. It's probably since it came out. I haven't seen it since it came out.
I'm going to say that I'm in the same boat you are. It's funny. I believe that's the only time I've seen it. But this movie, if you think about it, this is one of the more beloved Disney movies. Certainly one of the more beloved in the last, the last part of the last century for right. Darn sure. And as such, it's going to have a lot to live up to.
Well, it's interesting because, they brought back Jon Favreau, who directed The Jungle Book. And that movie went on to make $1 billion in 2016.
Yeah, guilty admission here. I never saw The Jungle Book.
It's a good movie.
And so the same style, the same, it's not quite... Well, it's a live action mix. Is that right? Is that how you would describe this? I know there's been some quibbling, about what it really is. It really live action mix, but so it's the same style though as the Jungle Book, correct?
Yeah. It's the same process. I've seen expectations about this movie. They think it can make $1.5 billion, which would be insane money.
Wow.
That was so really that high. Well,
I did.
Like I say it's a loved property. Mm-hmm. So,
well, these Disney remakes or reboots, however you want to put it. Beauty and the Beast made $1.26 billion.
Beauty and the Beast made 1.26.
1.26 billion.
And that wasn't the most. Let's be honest. I mean, that wasn't the best. It wasn't right across the coals or anything, but the reviews weren't great for it, right? And I don't know a lot of people who said they loved that movie. So, wow, I guess $1.5 billion's not out of the question.
Then coming out on the 26th, a movie that is sure to get some press. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Quentin Tarantino's next film.
Of all the movies, as much as I'm looking forward to Spider-Man, I'd have to say, in the short list of movies we have for July releases, that's probably the one I'm most interested in.
Why is that?
Well, Tarantino is one of the best filmmakers we have out there. He's cobbled together, amazingly, a pretty decent cast.
How does he do that?
I don't know.
How does Tarantino and all of his movies get these amazing casts?
Well, because they get to say all of this amazing dialogue. And once again, so we've got DiCaprio, and correct me if I'm wrong, I believe this is Leo's first on-screen appearance in 4 years since The Revenant.
Yeah, I have seen some concerns about how Tarantino is going to handle the material given what, some of the things that goes on in it with the Manson and...
Right. I know initially he wanted to release it the day, like the anniversary day of the Tate murders. But I don't know if it was because of box office concerns or if they just wanted to kind of maybe I can't remember who's releasing it. Maybe they wanted to step back from that a little bit.
That was a wise choice.
I agree.
Just off the top, what is your favorite Tarantino film, guys?
Several. Probably Pulp Fiction.
Oh,
B-Man?
That's a terrible question to ask. It's actually a great question to ask. I'm going to go back. I tend to like great directors' early movies, and I'm going to go with Reservoir Dogs.
Whoa. Okay. You're going back?
I'm going all the way back.
All the way back.
That's just the one that's still, I don't know. Love that movie.
I'm going Jackie Brown.
Wow.
Yeah. I know.
So wait a minute. So we've hit his first 3 movies. Just we each picked different movies. I believe those are his first 3.
Okay, we move into August. We got some interesting choices here. The New Mutants.
That's going to be interesting for sure. A bit of a history with this movie already. Trouble production a little bit. What do you think? What's your take on that? On what you've read? Does it make you more curious, or does it make you more cautious? I guess about your expectations.
I'm curiously cautious.
Nice.
How about
well done? Well played.
Thank you.
Curiously cautious.
Curiously, yes.
Well,
I need to make that my Twitter handle.
You do, absolutely. Here's my understanding of the backstory of the production here, and you correct me if I'm wrong. But all right, the director, Josh Boone. Now, it was my understanding that he originally wanted this as pretty much kind of a more of a horror movie than anything else, right? Just a straight horror movie which has I'm
fine with that. You know me.
Absolutely. It sounds like a very good idea. And that's, I think, pretty much how they shot it. And so afterwards, I don't know, the suits at I can't remember again who produced this, but they decided they wanted to go more the YA route and wanted to, kind of tamp it down for a wider audience, right? Then It shows up, is hugely successful, and then hold on, well maybe we're right in the first place, and so we go in and do some more reshoots. Now, granted, this time, let's say in opposition to the Fantastic Four movie, right? They pretty much took that out of Trank's hands, right?
Yeah,
and did it themselves. Here, Boone was involved the whole time. So at least we've got a consistency there with the direction, and that they've punched it back up to be, again, maybe more of a horror movie. And then they had to bump it. They bumped it back again at least a second time for the release date because they didn't want to get tangled up with Dark Phoenix. At least that's my understanding. So, who knows?
Yeah, there's a lot of ins and outs with this movie because this is one of those 20th Century Fox films. Mm-hmm. And it's got a great cast.
Yeah.
Anya Taylor-Joy, Charlie Heaton from Stranger Things.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I'm very interested to see how he plays in this.
Yeah, but I do have some concerns about this. Look, not necessarily in the production part of it. I kind of think this movie may surprise a few people. But one of the concerns is with 20th Century Fox, and the whole Disney deal, is who is going to care about this movie, right? So if it's...
Good point.
Will people go see it thinking, hey, we're going to go see these characters and we're never going to see them again, and we all know how these superhero movies work. We want the universe building and the whole 9 yards. So will anybody even give this movie a shot? Or will they do some kind of leak out and say, look, hey, we'll bring these characters back. Let's say it gets to, a few weeks from now, and there's a leak. Hey, we want to bring the New Mutants back. Try to build up some interest for the movie.
Well, that wouldn't be bad. That wouldn't be a bad decision to do that.
Disney, if you're listening.
Right.
So it would be called the New Mutants, right?
Right. So that's one of the questions I have for it. But Rick, how you feel about this movie? How do you feel about it?
Like you do. I'm not quite sure what to make of it. I've seen some of the footage. It looks well shot from what I've seen, but as far as what the final product is going to be, I have no idea.
Now, on the flip side, this is based on, there is a comic book storyline. So I'm talking about the fans out there. This is based upon a comic book storyline, so people may go check it out for that reason. Mm-hmm. So we'll see what happens. That's an interesting one. On August the 2nd, we have Dora the Explorer.
Well, as you can tell from the overwhelming silence there.
Wow.
Well, I'm just, my girls are grown up, so there's no interest in the home for that, and
I'm kind of like you. I don't have kids, but I know as a film, we should know a little bit more about this.
Right. However, here we are. None of us really know what to say about it. So what else do we have coming out on that date?
Something a little bit more well known.
Oh yeah. Hobbs and Shaw, right?
Yeah,
Hobbs and Shaw.
Hobbs and Shaw.
So Morganator, what do you look a little more excited about that than Dora the Explorer? Not that maybe a fine family movie. But.
Yeah.
All right, so Hobbs and Shaw is obviously a spinoff of Fast and Furious.
Right.
So they're going to pair up Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson with Jason Statham.
I think this will probably be the number one film of this weekend.
It should be.
Coming up.
It should be.
The second.
Yeah, Rock he had kind of a rough 2018.
He did. That's not a lie.
But this does feel like that kind of bounce back movie that look, Statham killed it last August with the Meg.
Yeah.
Yeah, this looks like it's going to be just fine. Then we get to the 9th, and it is Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. That could be a fun movie. It's directed by, I'm going to butcher his name. I'm sorry, I do not speak Norwegian. Andre Olverdal. He directed The Autopsy of Jane Doe, which I saw last week. That is a pretty good movie. He also directed a movie called Troll Hunter, which I know you saw, Barry.
I love that movie. Now, wait a minute. What movie did you say that he directed?
The Autopsy of Jane Doe.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
How was that?
It was good. It was.
I'm telling you, Troll Hunter's great. If people who are looking for a movie kind of out of the way, that check that one out.
It was very moody. Kind of it was across. It was well shot, but I enjoyed that. And it's one of those two. I didn't know anything about that movie. I'll go ahead and say this. If it's a horror film, and it's something I'm pretty interested in, I'm going to try to avoid to hear anything about it because I just love that genre so much that I try to stay away from any kind of plot details. But this was just one of those nights I was browsing around on Netflix, and I'd heard about this movie quite a bit. Like, well, there it is. I'll have to check it out, and was pleasantly surprised.
Oh, those are the best.
Yeah, and I'll tell you something else about this movie that's kind of interesting. It's Guillermo del Toro is involved with it. So he's producing it and did some writing on it.
No, something I have to. I mean, this one's kind of this one is news to me as well. I'm not very familiar with it, so I'll definitely have to check that one out.
And then we also have, keeping in the horror movie vein, that same weekend. Wow, Ari Aster's Hereditary follow-up, Midsummer.
Ooh. And I know you don't know. I know you don't know much about this, because there's no way you're going to allow yourself. There's no way that you would allow yourself to read very much about this.
No, I will say, okay, it's being put out by A24. And when you look at A24's track record, Hereditary, Lady Bird.
Yeah,
it comes at 9.
Yeah, because Lady Bird was my pick for the best movie of that year. They've had a nice run here lately.
You know, in Hereditary, you know, they shot that for $10 million, went on to make, I think, close to $80 million.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's...
Well, it became I'm pretty sure Hereditary became their number one movie, right?
Yeah.
Box office wise. So
really kind of came out of nowhere. Then we also have on the 16th, Angry Birds 2 movie.
And more silence.
More silence.
I did see the first one. So
you did?
It'd be curious to see what they do with this one.
Well, okay, did you like the first one?
I did. I played the video game a little bit, so I was kind of aware of the characters. It's going to be interesting to see what they do with the second one here, to see if they like pick up right where the first one left off, or it's going to be a new storyline. Who knows?
So you're interested in seeing this movie?
I'm so glad that one of us, because I thought we were going to swing and miss on. I thought we were all going to swing and miss on the Angry Birds.
Well, on the Dora the Explorer thing, I will say this. I kind of feel like that movie's about 10 years too late. And I think that's one reason I didn't do too much research into it, put too much time into it, because it just feels like it's about 10 years too late.
I agree with that.
You know, I will say that.
Wait a minute. Why? Yeah. Why are they doing that now?
Now, is the Dora movie, is it going to be animated like the show? Is it live action?
It is live action. CGI is what, you know. I think there may be a little mix of both there. So that's my understanding, at least.
And how about, look at this on the 23rd. Now, Rick, I know you're a big fan of this guy.
Gerard Butler.
You got to put that, Gerard Butler.
It's like an angel has fallen.
How the angel has, how far the angel has fallen. Yeah.
Why are you giving it the look over there, B-Man?
What look would you possibly be talking about?
Snide, sarcastic, pessimistic.
Yes,
let me go through all the mystics.
All of those would be accurate, and maybe more. You could probably come up with more. No,
Did you see Olympus Has Fallen?
Yes.
Did you see London Has Fallen?
Yes.
Rick, did you see Olympus?
I did.
Did you see London?
I did.
Okay, so what did you think about those movies?
I thought they were really good. I enjoyed them. Apparently much more than B-Man did.
Yeah, I thought they were bad. We'll just have to agree to disagree on.
I didn't see
much like Gerard Butler's entire, career, except for maybe, except for 300, which he was well cast and did well there.
Did you see Den of Thieves?
No, I didn't see Den of Thieves, and that got some mixed reviews. Certainly got better reviews than most of his, recent films have, including, good lands, Geostorm, and what was the one with Gary Oldman, the Hunter Killer? It's yeah. No, I won't be looking forward to that. I'll somebody will have to trick me into going to see that. Oh wait, I do a review show, don't I? Crap, I may have to go. I may actually have to go see it.
It may surprise you. You know what?
I hope it does surprise me.
I'm going to say this. I'm going to say when you go see it that Rick goes with you. How about that?
What? So are you doing some kind of social experiment here? What's going on?
Because you didn't like the movies and you liked the first two,
right? So I should.
So
like
you two go together, and then when it comes out, you guys do a show.
So we'll just see Siskel and Ebert it.
Yeah.
Well, I'm all for that.
Yeah, we can do that.
That could be an entertaining. That could be an entertaining show.
We'll put that one on the old YouTube film. Which, by the way, we do have a YouTube channel, Phil Nobs YouTube channel, and let us know what you think about some of these Gerard Butler movies at Film Nobs on Twitter. Love to hear from you. Okay, there is one movie we need to talk about. Comes out August the 9th. Artemis Fowl.
The Disney movie, based on Owen Colfer, I believe, was his name. A series of books started back in the early 2000s, I think. I didn't know, and I still don't know a whole lot about it, but I just recently saw the trailer, and I'll have to say, I'm pretty interested now. Looking at that, looked pretty good. Kenneth Branagh is actually directing this. He's coming off of a pretty decent hit with last year or the year before last remake of Murder on the Orient Express. And like I said, I don't really know that much about the storyline behind the series of books and the movies. I know that we're dealing with a young kind of, at least at the beginning, anti-hero who's having to search for his father, I believe, and that's about the extent of what I've got. But like I said, that trailer looked pretty cool.
Well, judging off what you just said there, I think I may check it out myself. Those are pretty good sales, man.
Well, like I say, I know you don't really like to go look at too many trailers. This, since you don't know and I don't know anything about the book, I don't think it's going to spoil it.
Yeah, I'll check. I'll check that one out. Now look, we're coming up into September, and September can mean only one thing to me. And that is It Chapter 2. And the question is, will it go pop, 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 or bust?
Now, are you talking about at the box office, or are you worried more on a critical level? Because I know we have both seen. Have we all seen the original
No.
It, the television?
Parts of it.
Parts of It?
Which part did you see?
I just remember the clown.
Okay.
Well, you tried.
I tried hard,
buddy.
man.
It just didn't work
Oh
out.
my goodness, I tried hard. Well, I got to ask you this. Okay, what's your opinion on clowns? Are you a clown person? Do you like clowns?
No.
Are you frightened of clowns? Do they give you a sense of unease?
They can.
For the most,
They
like,
can,
overall. Yeah. I know. I think, have you and I talked about this, Steve, about why so many people seem to have problems with clowns?
Mm-hmm.
Because you can't see the real them, and so how can you truly gauge what they're thinking? I don't.
Yeah, you really don't know what they're thinking.
No.
But I will say this. A lot of people are either really scared of clowns or they like clowns because the last movie made like $700 million.
Right. I think in the movie's case, they both liked and didn't like. It was scary, Pennywise, a pretty scary clown, but audiences, including myself, I'll have to say, I really, really enjoyed that movie. I thought that was about as good of a popcorn horror movie as I've seen in quite a while.
Are you worried about it being the adults and not the kids this time?
Most definitely.
Even though I will say this, they are bringing the kids into the movie more than the TV version.
And that's probably a wise decision. And I can't help but wonder, and I haven't read the book, so I don't know, but part of me wants to go, is the reason because the two-part television miniseries, whatever you want to call it, back in the late 80s, the second part just did not work. It didn't work when it got to the adults. The first part was very well done, but I thought the second part was pretty slow and laughable at times. So,
well, and you can remember back then, it wasn't like TV now. I mean, for younger listeners, the ratings were a lot more strict, and so to see some of the things that you saw in this movie, in this miniseries, it was pretty shocking because Pennywise was, it's pretty terrifying. I remember watching that, and I was like in my early 20s, and I was like, this is pretty spooky.
Well, yeah, Tim Curry's performance in that. We've been blessed both times. Both actors that have portrayed Pennywise.
Oh, Skarsgård's great.
Really, yeah, Skarsgård.
Different. It's a very different version.
And I think that's what you've got to do. And successfully retelling something that was successful, in the first place, you've got to find your own way, your own little niche. And he did that very well. But again, part 2 of the original It was very underwhelming. So I'm certainly worried about this one.
If you had to lay a guess, because this is the multi-million-dollar question, better or worse?
If I just had to,
then the 2017, then It.
Well, to me, I kind of.
It's got a great cast. It's got a great cast.
I worked at a casino and a racetrack, right? So I know a little bit about gambling.
You got Jessica Chastain, Bill Hader,
right.
McAvoy.
The betting would still have to be for it won't be as good, and that's regardless of what it is. Usually it's part 2. Part 2 of anything isn't as good as part 1. So, and what worries me is this one has, I think, an even harder row to hoe in a way, if you know what I'm talking about, to be successful on a critical level. It's just going to be tough. It's going to be tough.
So that remains the big question: will it float or will it sink to the bottom of the dairy sewers?
Well, I'm certainly rooting for it. Let's put it this way.
Yeah, I am too. I'll be there probably opening weekend. Maybe that following Monday because I'm not a crowd guy.
You're not, and you get it. Well, I believe he got on to me earlier today for not be. I believe I said sometimes I'm not much of a people person either, and he had the gall to look at me cross-eyed.
But I've got good reasons why. You've been there. You have witnessed my movie theater experiences. You've witnessed it.
I think, now that we brought it up, we just might as well. So one day, Stephen
This is a true story.
This is a true story. He had told me over and over about how people, when he went to the theater, it wouldn't matter how many people were in the theater or how few people were in the theater. He could be the only one in there, and someone would come and sit directly behind him and put their feet up, on his chair, and
they're drawn to you.
Right. Like a moth to the flame.
And look, he has a tendency every now and then to maybe exaggerate. Just a little bit. And I'm like, whatever. I'm sure, they were probably 3 or 4 rows back. So we go, was it Geely or what movie did we see?
Geely.
Because I thought for some reason, I was thinking it was a terrible movie. We went to see a terrible movie, didn't we?
Yeah, it was bad.
Really bad movie.
The whole experience was awful.
Right.
I can't remember.
Maybe that's just why. But it was
that's bad when I remember more about the guy than the movie itself.
So we're the only two. We are the only 2 people in the theater. And even, well, of course, we gave ourselves, so we got in the middle row, and we got in the middle of the middle row, and we kept a seat between us because, we've got some popcorn.
Got to have a wiggle room.
Well, exactly. So the movie is about, or the previews are about to start, and it's looking pretty good because it's great when you can go see a movie in theater and no one
It's amazing.
shows up.
It's like being in your house, and it's like you got this incredibly large TV that's just mind blowing.
One of the greatest movie experiences in my life days was I saw Ready Player One and Black Panther back to back at this theater, and I was the only guy in the theater for both movies.
Wow!
But back to this story. So we're sitting there, and in comes this one lone dude, right? And I'm like, oh, if he sits anywhere, if he sits anywhere somewhat close to us, then I'm going to hear it from Steve. I'm going to hear, never hear the end of it. He can sit 3 rows back and he'll complain about it. But I'll be damned if this guy didn't come down our row and sit right next
to me.
I think we were so.
I mean, you'd almost think
amazed.
that I planned it.
Yeah,
it was
I had that possibility did cross. I was like, is he setting?
He knows this guy.
But then I thought, well, no, he didn't gamble. He didn't say, "I'll bet you somebody comes in." If he would have done that. If he'd have planned it, he would have tried to get something out of it. So
sinister.
It was quite the weird thing. Did we end up moving? I can't. Or were we just so flabbergasted we just sat there?
I was. It was kind of like just stunned. Okay, well,
all right.
You do realize there's 150 other seats
at least. This was not a small. This wasn't one of these little small, theaters. There were a few seats in it.
Maybe just want to be part of the community. Maybe he was lonely. I don't.
Maybe that was just his seat.
Yeah, that's a good point. I've done that. I do that in restaurants. There's like a table or a seat. So yeah, maybe that was just his seat, and we just happened to sit.
Is he the one? Did he come into those sorry so and so's? This everyone knows.
They are in my seat.
This is my seat. Right. I come to this.
I see 10 movies a month. that was a fun story.
So what? Well, it wasn't fun at the time. So what else? What is going up against Pennywise? Anything that week, or do we need to move on to the following week?
Pretty much everything got the heck away from Pennywise.
I can understand that. Yeah,
they're scared of clowns too.
Yeah, and for good reason. About 800 million worth.
So from clowns to what? Spies? Animated spies? Is that what I see?
Animated spies in the skies.
All right, Morganator. What do we know anything about spies?
I've seen the trailer.
Yeah, and
so Will Smith is a spy,
right?
And his scientist friend, I guess Tom Holland, turns him inadvertently into a bird.
Oh, what? So it's by accident. It's not, hey, we're going to make the spy even.
I think he was demonstrating an experiment,
right?
And the way things go. Oops.
Oops, you're a bird.
You're a bird.
This is the disguise part of
it. Right.
So, what was your first thought about? What did you think about the trailer that you saw?
Getting over Will Smith being turned into a bird was kind of amusing. I don't know about the plot, what happens, because they didn't really say.
Right.
It was more of, hey, this is.
Well, how did the animation? I mean, are you going? Oh, well, that looks. At least the animation is going to be all
right. It looks good. It looks good.
So Will Smith this year being turned into a genie and then a bird.
Are you going to see it?
Probably. I'll probably check it out.
Because you are a big fan of animated films.
Yeah, more so than in horror films.
Yeah, but I'll say this because you are more interested in animated than I am. It kind of gets me watching more animated films. Now I'll watch them, on Netflix, but I do pay attention to them a little bit more. And plus it's just a cool medium. I mean, right. How about on the 20th we have The Kitchen, Melissa McCarthy, Tiffany Haddish, Elizabeth Moss. I will say this too about this. It was directed by Andrea Berloff, who co-wrote Straight Outta Compton and wrote World Trade Center.
Yeah,
it's her directorial debut.
I've got. I'm looking forward to this. This could be an interesting. It's based on a comic book series that came out a few years ago, and I believe it's about 3 women who were married to New York City mobsters. The mobsters go to jail, and they've got to try, I believe, to keep the family business going and stay alive. Now, the one thing that does kind of worry me, we had a movie this past year that kind of falls along those lines in Widows, which I thought was a little disappointing. Hopefully this movie will be a little bit better. Certainly an interesting cast.
Yeah, this one is on my list of keep an eye on movies.
Yeah, I agree. This could be one of those. This could be one of those sneak in and do really well and be pretty good.
Following week we have another animated film, Abominable.
I know the plot.
What's the? I'm going to say maybe Abominable Snowman.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes. As the title indicates.
Right.
So there's a group of misfits, and they encounter a Yeti. I don't know where they are when they encounter the Yeti, and they try to reunite the Yeti with his family in the Himalayas.
Haven't we just had an animated Yeti movie? Was it Smallfoot? Is it?
Yeah, we did.
So,
We love our Yetis,
well, do we?
including the microphones.
A big shout out.
Shout out to Yeti
A
microphones.
big shout out to Yeti microphones, indeed. Nicely done.
Nice.
Nicely played.
Thank you.
I can't believe it took me a half a second to wonder what you were doing there. And there's also a movie, I believe, on the 27th, that another one I'm kind of interested in. It's a biopic of Judy Garland titled, Judy, starring Renee Zellweger. And, Renee's kind of had a rough go of it the last few years. And I've seen a still from this movie. And I don't know, for some reason, I'm thinking, this could be another one of those, again, movies that might sneak in there. Might actually be pretty good. Certainly interesting casting. I'd like to see Renee rebound off of some past.
Yeah, I'd like to see her make a comeback.
Definitely, because she's a talented actress. She's an Oscar winner and a deserved Oscar winner. She's a good actress.
We want to roll into October. We have the Gemini Man, October 4th with Will Smith, science fiction. How about the plot of this one? An aging assassin who encounters the ultimate opponent in the form of his younger clone.
I've already seen this. I've already seen this movie.
Looper?
Yeah.
Looper.
It was called Looper a few years ago.
And it was a good movie.
It was a good movie.
What about Gemini? You going to give Gemini Man a shot?
It's got Will Smith in it, so
Yeah.
sure.
Well, so Will Smith is
He's-
popping up all over the place.
He is. He's having a big year.
Well, surely you would think, at least one of these movies, good lands, Aladdin will hit. Whether it's good or not, that movie will hit.
Oh, Aladdin, yeah.
But this one, and plus, did you mention the director?
I have not mentioned the director.
Ang Lee. Very interesting. This is another one of those movies. I really don't know what to think about this right now, and I'm kind of interested in it. But again, it sounds a lot like Looper.
October 4th, a little bit of movie, a little movie called Joker. Some people want to say The Joker. It is Joker. Joaquin Phoenix, Robert De Niro, Mark Maron.
Maybe this year's better. At the beginning of the show, I believed I said, I don't know yet. Now that we read some of these off, though, maybe this will be a more interesting. Now that I hear us talk these out, I don't know. What do you think about this? Certainly, I love the idea of Joaquin Phoenix as the Joker.
What did y'all think about the stills? When they released, and of course they did have a little bit of video footage as well, but what the Joker makeup looked like.
Well, I was a little underwhelmed.
I guess I have mixed emotions. It's not as Joker-ish as you would think. Maybe it would be. So it's kind of subdued.
Right. Well, maybe they think that's the way they've got to go. They've gone so big in the past. With Leto's version and Suicide Squad. And,
you don't want to copy Ledger,
Right.
Yeah, you definitely want to stay. You definitely want to, and that may actually, in the end, be the most interesting thing because Joaquin Phoenix is one of the better actors we've got going right now, guys. He really is, and to see him take on a role that another fine actor had the role of his lifetime in, that alone is going to be well worth watching to see how he can do that.
And Joker is standalone, right?
Yeah. Yeah, this is an interesting movie because it only has like a $55 million budget. So, from a creative point of view, it allows you to take some risk that otherwise, when you have those bigger budgets, the studios get a little bit more concerned, but they want to play a little more safer. This one, they can do some different things. Plus, the director, Todd Phillips, Most noticeable of the Hangover movies. There's a lot of interesting dynamics in here.
Yeah, and to me that's for me. I'm a little concerned about that. It's not the guy you would think that would be.
Well, this is a big movie for
that.
This is a big movie for DC because following the success, a $1 billion movie like Aquaman, and now you got Shazam and Joker. Both of those movies, not necessarily the ones you go, they're going to be hits. You just look at them, that movie's going to, like Wonder Woman 1984 when it comes out, you're going to look at that movie and say, that movie is going to be a success.
Yep.
These movies are a little bit more iffier, with a little asterisk. Curious, but not a sure thing.
Well, I know the same week, there's another movie coming out that I would think that you, Steve, would be very interested in, The Woman in the Window. And for one overwhelming reason you would be interested in this.
And what would that be?
Well, that's because have you not told me that Rear Window may be your all-time favorite Hitchcock movie?
Yeah, it is.
Well, we've got a movie that's going to play very heavily off of the themes and the plot of that movie,
which is exactly why I've stayed away from it.
So, well, I'm not going to spoil anything for you because I really don't know much about it other than woman sees something she maybe shouldn't see, and I do know that woman is agoraphoric. I believe that's
these are my kind of movies.
Yeah,
these are the movies I kind of go for, which explains a lot of things when we talk about movies. Maybe it explains a little bit about me. I don't know.
Well, this is. I know that you've got a director that's done some fine work, and that Joe Wright did the Darkest Hour. He directed Atonement, Pride and Prejudice.
Good movies.
Yeah, and then the writer Tracy Letts is a Pulitzer Prize winner for drama. He wrote August Osage County, and it's based on a novel by A.J. Finn. So. Yeah,
This may be one of those films that when I look at the month, I say, okay, Joker, Woman in Window, then maybe we'll talk about one here in a second. Would be the ones I go see.
Now, am I looking at this right? I've got that this is Disney is releasing this film.
Now that I did not know.
I've got here by this note. It's produced by 20th Century Fox, but the distributor Disney.
Okay.
So.
Even more curious.
Yeah, I know. That when I saw that, I was like, well, that is interesting.
Yeah, like I said, that is one of those movies I just stayed away from. I just stayed away and said, I don't really want to know too much about it. And I didn't even know who was putting it out.
So from The Woman in the Window, we skip to the next week. I don't believe there's anything. I don't have anything out for the 4th, at least of note.
Mm-mm.
But I do have a somewhat bigger, or a big movie coming out the next week. Zombieland 2, guys.
Zombieland 2.
Another pretty interesting movie. The Zombieland, pretty much that might have been certainly one of the movies that catapulted our culture's fascination. It reintroduced the zombies, helped reintroduce zombies into popular culture, and it also reintroduced Woody Harrelson to the A-list or to bigger movies at least.
Yeah, this movie, Zombieland, really revitalized Woody's career.
Oh, absolutely. That was the movie that kicked it.
And Emma Stone,
Abigail Breslin, good lands. Jesse Eisenberg, one of his first. It's a solid, and some unknown actor. Bill Murray, that guy rose to stardom.
Who is that guy?
Yeah, I know. It was a small role, but yet it catapulted him into stardom. Definitely, that's one of the movies of the month that's really got me.
And bringing back Ruben Fleischer, who's coming off Venom.
Well, I hope he ups his game.
Then they got, what's it, A Beautiful Day in a Neighborhood?
Is that the 11th as well?
That is on the 18th.
Because I had another movie.
Wait a second. Yeah, we did skip over the Addams Family.
There's the Addams Family, the Goldfinch.
The Goldfinch, yeah.
A couple of other interesting movies. The Goldfinch.
Get my notes back in front of me.
That's got Nicole Kidman, Sarah Paulson, Luke Wilson, and the guy from Baby Driver that I always destroy his name.
Go for it.
Oh man, I was hoping be a friend and just help me out here. It's yeah.
I'm going to have to. Ansel,
right?
Elgort.
There, absolutely. That is perfectly. I'm sure that is how you say it.
Or it may be Ansel, but yeah, it may be Ansel. I think it is Ansel.
And this is another. This is a movie that you're talking about Netflix. This was co-financed. Warner Brothers co-financed with Amazon Studios. Amazon put up a third of the budget of this movie to have, I guess, sole streaming rights to it. So,
whoa,
yeah, I thought that was. I didn't know that until like I did a little bit of homework into it. So,
isn't it amazing how we talked about this a little bit before, but how these streaming services just keep upping their game. Yeah. You know, more. You know. I always hated the term A-list star, but just recognizable names just coming over to streaming. It's kind of like when there used to be that stigma of TV.
Right.
You had movie stars and you had TV stars. And then the little thing called syndication happened and negotiations. And then you started seeing more people on TV. And now you get the same phenomenon going on with streaming. It's just fascinating. And the quality. It's just the quality of movies and shows on these platforms.
Yeah,
amazing.
There's no shame in being on television anymore.
Get me on one of these shows.
All right, so what else? Where are we going from the Goldfinch to?
We had the Addams Family, then you had the Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood.
Well, I'm certainly interested in A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. Tom Hanks playing Fred Rogers, Mr. Rogers from television. That's very interesting to me, and this may be a good time for this movie because it's coming off of this past year. The documentary, "Won't You Be My Neighbor?"
Yeah,
that was very successful and a very good movie, by the way.
That's a good sign for this movie.
It is. I think.
I don't think anybody expected that.
No, It may not get in, but I kind of expect it here in a few days to be one of the 5 best documentary nominees. I wouldn't be surprised if it comes up. So, and that will only help it out even more. So.
It just seems like that's a role that Tom Hanks is kind of born to play.
Yeah, no one has ever had anything bad to say about Tom Hanks, at least that I've heard. His reputation is pretty unspoiled, and he's playing a guy whose reputation was pretty pure as well. So, yeah, that sounds like a winner all the way around. The Addams Family,
Animated,
yeah,
could be fun.
I'm more interested in the Addams Family than I am the previous couple of animated movies we brought up.
I'll go. Look, I'll watch that because it involves the kind of horror element.
Right.
So it's just a tinge of horror.
Anything kind of spooky fun. Yeah. I'll check it out.
Well, a pretty decent voice cast in this. We got Charlize Theron. We've got Oscar Isaac, Chloe Grace Moritz.
Gee, why couldn't they just step up the talent level on this movie?
Yeah.
Come on.
Finn Wolfhard, Bette Midler.
I mean, come on. What's going on here?
Yeah,
Who are those people? Really? That's the cast?
Yeah.
Wow.
That's impressive.
Pretty solid. Nick Kroll, Elsie Fisher.
That's impressive. That is an impressive cast for an animated film, especially that animated film.
And right, so, and the director, good land, it's Greg, and I can't remember his last name now, but this guy's pretty interesting. A lot of his credits are with the Thomas and Friends series, which I believe is pretty kid friendly, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then he went on to do Sausage Party.
Huh.
So this guy has definitely played both sides of the animated, at least as far as for kids, and then as far as you can go for adults. So how he plays this will be
hopefully somewhere at least not even in the middle.
Oh yeah, not even. No, let's for our children's sake, hope that he
please
goes
stay far away from the sausage
right.
party. Wow.
So is that pretty much? I guess that pretty much takes care of.
That's a big October releases.
It's a big October.
That's a big October. We need to call it Big October. Moving into what do we want to call November?
Well, we've got some. I believe we've got some pretty big movies coming out here as well.
I was trying to come up with something clever. Some kind of November title.
Well, if you're looking at me. You're looking the wrong direction for clever. I'm just trying to hang on for dear life, buddy. I'm trying to hang on to your coattails for dear life.
You're just trying to hold on to that microphone and ride this thing out. Right?
Oh, I see what you did there. Wow. He's actually giving you another visual of what's going on here. I'm Freddie Mercurying my mic here. I'm holding it rock star style.
It is. It's fascinating. It's fascinating to sit across from. It's like I just expect you to put on some spandex pants and dance around with a microphone at any second.
Well, for one, you definitely should hope that I don't put on spandex. And that's part. Look, I've had I've eaten quite well this week, right? And I can't lean over forward very well. I have to lean. I can't believe I'm divulging all this. I can't lean over very, very far, so I'm having to lean back in my chair. So I'm grabbing my mic and my mic stand, and
Well, how about
dig me out of this?
Okay, we'll dig you out. Rick, you want to take this one over?
So, November 1st, we got Terminator 6 coming out.
Terminator 6.
Rick, you are a huge fan of this franchise.
I am.
But
so, this one is supposed to pick up after Terminator 2, or T2. So, Rise of the Machines and all the other ones don't exist.
So they don't count at all. Look,
retcon.
I'm fine. Yeah, I'm fine with that. I like 3 actually.
I like Rise of the Machines.
I like Rise of the Machines, but I can, if I have to sacrifice that, then I'll be okay. If this movie, is good, then I'll sacrifice that.
Got we talked about Deadpool a little bit earlier. Not Deadpool 2, but Deadpool. Tim Miller is directing it. Which that ought to be fun.
Oh, hey, that's right. I'd forgotten all about that.
That's some good action. There's some good action in Deadpool.
Some good action in that. And so now Cameron's listed as a producer here, right? Is that just like a courtesy?
No.
He's actively.
Yeah, his hands are all over this one, from what I've read.
Well, that helps as well. Then.
Yeah,
I'm more interested.
They want to get this one and nail it down. From everything I've read. Then I've got to ask this as well. So, Rick, what was your favorite Terminator movie? Just real quick. I've never asked you. Oh, okay. I see the sign from B-Man. Okay.
2.
What? It is 2.
Mm-hmm.
B-Man?
Favorite Terminator film?
Well, 1 and 2 are close. And it seems like I always do this because I don't know if one of you guys have asked me before, like with Star Wars and Empire Strikes Back. Look, I can easily see why critically Empire Strikes Back would get the nod.
That's mine, yeah.
But something about, I remember the newness of things, and Star Wars was so, and it might have hit me at the right. So I tend to go with the first one. So now I'll go with the first one. But I can't argue. I won't argue that fact.
I'm going to go
with someone that wants to, pick 2.
Yeah, I'm going to go probably T2. Yeah, close, very, very close. I'll probably go T2.
There's a different feel, There's a little bit different. It's a dark. That first Terminator is pretty. I don't know. It's a little more towards the horror sci-fi side, and T2 is more of a that popcorn summer movie type feel to it. It's not as dangerous. The second one isn't as dangerous as the first one, but it's more polished. It's slicker, And I'm not saying that in a bad way. Sometimes that may sound bad, but that's tough. They're both great.
Okay, well, how about this one? Jumping from that to another 80s property. Well, actually, it's a 70s property. I forget. This thing goes even further back. Charlie's Angels.
Well, I'm not near as excited about this one. I didn't care for
And it's directed
the other.
It's directed by somebody who you like a lot. Big fan of Elizabeth Banks.
I love Elizabeth Banks as a comedian and as an actress. We'll see how she does with this. But I didn't even like the reboots to Charlie's Angels with Barrymore and Lou and Diaz. I didn't care for those movies either, so I'm not too excited about it.
How about Midway?
Well, I love me a good war movie, but
Midway coming out Friday on the November 8th.
I believe Woody's back for that too, isn't he?
Woody Harrelson,
He
Luke
plays
Evans,
Chester. I believe he plays Admiral Nimitz, Chester Nimitz in it. So
Mandy Moore. Now, what's interesting about this as well, it is somebody that I think you're a big fan of, Rick. It's being directed by Roland Emmerich.
Oh yeah, yep.
No stranger to the big blockbusters.
No, Should be interesting to see what it does with a World War II movie.
well, let's hope he doesn't destroy it like he did a couple other properties back in the 90s. You can tell that I'm a big Emmerich fan.
But Rick, is this something you'd be interested in because you're a big fan of Emmerich?
Yeah, I would love to see it on the big screen.
It's going to look good.
It should. It should look amazing. I haven't seen any trailer footage for
I
it.
hope that this. Have you guys ever seen the original? There was a I believe it was 75 or 76 movie called Midway that was a huge cast at the time. You had Charlton Heston, Henry Fonda, I think played Nimitz, and it was there were some cool things on a grand scale, but as a drama, as a movie, it pretty much failed. So maybe. Well, I was about to say maybe Emmerich will get it right, but that I'm not going to hold my breath on that.
We have a couple of movies coming out on the 15th. You have Last Christmas. It's a romantic comedy. You have this could be interesting, The Good Liar, starring Ian McKellen, Helen Mirren.
This is one of
This is one of yours.
sleeper picks this year. At least I'm rooting for it because you can't get much better than Sir Ian McKellen and Dame Helen Mirren. I had the great fortune to see them act on Broadway 10 or 15 years ago in a play called Dance of the Dead. And to see them back together again, that'll be fun.
Then we have on the 22nd, Frozen 2. That we all know is going to be gangbusters, gigantic.
It'll be huge.
It's going to be huge. Going to be huge. Did either one of you see the original?
No.
I did.
You did?
I did.
What'd you think about it?
It was incredible animation. Of course, a lot of musical numbers that get tossed around a lot. Curious to see what they do with this one.
I didn't realize that Frozen came out in 2013.
Yeah, it's been a while. It's been a day or two.
And it made a $1.27 billion.
Yeah, it seems to also
highest grossing animated film of all time. Barely. Barely. It just edging out $1.24 billion. You got something to say over there?
Well, I'm surprised that you kind of. I knew there was something about it. He mentioned Last Christmas. It's like there's something about this movie that
Wham
seems like all right.
Wham song.
So my understanding is that Emma Thompson, she was friends with George Michael, and they had some conversations, and out of those conversations, this helped.
Oh, this really is something about Last Christmas.
Yeah. About that she had talked to him, and she wrote. Emma Thompson's in the movie, but she also co-wrote the screenplay for it. And Paul Feig is directing. Paul is Melissa McCarthy's go-to director, at least for some of her better movies. But yeah, what was it? It features music from George Michael, including not just some of his older hits, including some supposedly unreleased stuff.
Well, that makes it a little more interesting for
Right.
me.
And I was saying, I was like, at first I was like, oh, well, I kind of glossed over it a little bit, and then I was like, whoa, hold on. And then, and you've got Emma Thompson, who, like I said, co-wrote it, and she stars with Amelia Clarke, Henry Golding, and Michelle Yeoh, both from Crazy Rich Asians. So there's a couple of interesting things there.
I'm glad you told me that because I'm a big George Michael.
That's
Wham
right. That's
fan.
why I was like, maybe he doesn't know about it.
I didn't know about that connection. No,
Yeah,
I'll definitely
I know
pay a
that
little
you're
bit more
big fan.
attention to that one.
Yeah.
Because they're going to play the song, right? You got to play the song Last Christmas.
Oh, surely.
Now you're talking about movies you're interested in. On the 27th, Knives Out.
Right.
Ryan Johnson.
And this is one, and it's not because I'm trying. I just don't know that there's a lot of info out there about what this is.
No, they're keeping this. Yeah.
And I'm perfectly fine with that. Look at that cast. I mean,
Daniel Craig, Jamie Lee Curtis, Tony Collette,
Chris Evans, Lakeith Stanfield, did you say Jamie Lee Curtis, Michael Shannon,
Mr. Intensity, Michael Shannon.
Yeah, your go-to intensity guy.
If you ever make a movie you need intensity, just say get Michael Shannon on the phone.
Right, and I guess if Michael Shannon's not available, then you go to John Bernthal, probably. Right?
I mean, he could eat a Twinkie. I mean, and be in a great mood and still look intense.
And like we mentioned Looper being re-released. Oh, sorry, no, it wasn't Looper being re-released. It was a new movie with Will Smith.
Gemini Man,
right? But Ryan Johnson is back. He actually wrote and directed Knives Out. So definitely,
that's on my must.
That is definitely a must movie this year.
And in a few weeks, we'll be talking about a movie pretty soon. There's going to be some interesting synergy between Ryan Johnson and a movie that we're about to talk about pretty soon. And we're getting to the big month of December.
How are we going to end the year? With what kind of movies are we going to end this now more promising year than I had at first admitted?
So as we've gone along, this movie season has become this year 2019 has become a bigger.
Isn't that funny how when you sometimes
information is power,
right? When you talk things out, when you communicate with others, you kind of suss things out a little bit better, and hey, things might be more than you thought. So what do we start off with?
Well, okay. So there's two ways we can go about this.
Okay.
All right. There's the movie, and we can save the best for last and cover the other movies and then go to the one that's going to be the conversation.
Let's do it that way.
Okay.
Build up to it.
Do a little build up to it. All right. So, Christmas Day, we have Super Intelligence starring Melissa McCarthy.
Well, I'm certainly much more intrigued with The Kitchen than I am with Super Intelligent. I mean, this is, this has got high concept comedy written all over it, and sometimes that has not been Melissa's, strong suit. I know that it's this is Good Lands. Who directed this? Help me out here. It's her husband, Ben Falcone. And here's what he's directed. Yeah, I'm sure they seem to be great together as a couple, but he's directed Life of the Party, The Boss, Tammy. Those are not among when you're talking about McCarthy's stronger movies. None of those movies are going to be mentioned. So that and it's written by the writer of The Boss, and that this does not excite me, to be honest with you. It's my understanding that for some reason AI, the super intelligence, it's all come together, and they're going to try to take over mankind, and somehow somehow she's our last hope. She's going to have to battle against it.
So it's like a comedy version of Terminator.
I don't know what.
Maybe.
That's an interesting way of looking at it. That's an interesting way of looking at that.
I know. I believe Josh. I want to. No, James Corden is the voice of superintelligence. I know that. I know that much. So
well, that's good.
Yeah, that can't hurt. So I don't know. Maybe this will. But I've just got a feeling that this could be superintelligence could be 2019's version of Holmes and Watson, which came out the same day, and with two, comedy stalwarts. So,
well, another movie coming out on the 25th. Somebody else we don't hear too much about. Harrison Ford's going to be in The Call of the Wild.
Well done, because I don't have that on my list. Another version of Call of the Wild. This will be. I can't remember how many, but I didn't know it. I like the idea of Harrison Ford in this movie.
Yeah, he seemed like kind of grizzled role.
Right. The last version that I saw was like, oh my gosh, I was a young guy. It was Charlton Heston played I guess in a version of it in the 70s, and it was pretty unmemorable. So hopefully Harrison will have a little bit better luck with it.
Yeah, it actually has an actress, Karen Gillan, who's going to be in Jumanji coming up. We'll talk about here in a second. There's a couple. You're talking about James Corden. James Corden's in Cats that comes out on the 20th. There's like several actors there just in several movies. It's a big December.
Well, Cats will be. I've never seen Cats. Am I in the minority?
I've never seen Cats, but
I don't know anything about. I don't know what that play.
That surprises me, considering how much you actually like Cats.
Yeah,
and I like plays. So
Yeah, it's odd that you because you watch a lot of plays.
Right.
He watches a lot of plays, and I love Cats. So between the two of us,
wow, I'm really shocked.
Well, it's got you've got Tom Hooper is directing it, and he's done. He did Les Miserables.
Yep,
and that seemed to do well with
King's
a lot of people.
Speech, Danish Girl.
Yep.
I mean,
he's a solid director, and you've got Jennifer Hudson, Taylor Swift, James Corden, as you mentioned, Idris Elba, Rebel Wilson, Ian McKellen back,
Judi Dench.
Yeah, so
it's nice to see these older actors getting some nice roles.
Yeah, definitely, no doubt.
And I guess if we just got to, we're edging closer. Jumanji sequel. Now, I've seen this thing called several things. I've seen Jumanji 2. I've seen Jumanji 3.
Right.
I've seen Jumanji Welcome to the Jungle 2.
That's the one that I've got on my paper. Is the one that I've seen is Jumanji Welcome to the Jungle 2. Whether that's
I'm not sure even they really know what to call the movie.
It won't matter what they call it. What they will call it is Another Trip to the Bank.
Right.
Is what they're going to call that movie. And the first one was. It was all right. It was okay for what it was. I didn't think it was the greatest movie in the world, but it was.
It made a little bit of money.
It made a little. Well, and it also may have taken a little bit of money away from, something else we'll talk about in a minute, too. Yeah. We'll see if it'll do the same thing this year.
Yeah, $962 million this thing made.
Yeah.
And there's some interesting synergy. This is kind of, building up to it. We're talking about Jumanji, talking about Rian Johnson, talking about the movie that has yet to be named coming up.
The movie that has yet to be named.
So you said... Did you like Jumanji enough that you'd go check it out again?
Yes.
Check out the sequel?
Yeah, I liked it that much. I was entertained enough. Did I think it was great? No, but
is this something you'd be interested in, Rick?
Jumanji?
Yeah.
I did not see I've seen the original one. I haven't seen...
You're talking about the Robin Williams.
Right.
Is it something...
I actually liked this version of Jumanji better than I like the Robin Williams version of Jumanji.
It's a cool premise. I mean, like I said, I've yet to see either one of the Jumanji films.
Now that does...
Because I'm a huge Robin Williams fan.
That surprises me quite a bit.
It's funny. because you know this, I'm a huge Robin Williams fan. Matter of fact, the first voice, well, other than Elvis, I remember doing that was an actual person was Robin Williams doing impersonations. But I haven't yet to see Miss Doubtfire.
Great movie.
In Jumanji. I don't know how that's possible. I've seen Patch Adams. I've seen some of these others.
Oh my gosh, you've seen Patch Adams, but you haven't seen Miss Doubtfire, and yeah, that.
But we all agree that this movie is going to make $1 gazillion.
A lot. Yeah, it's going to do well.
It should kill it.
And they're opening it, relatively the same time frame. They opened it in 2017 on the 20th. They're releasing this one on the 13th. Because on the 20th,
is there something big? Is there something big opening on the 20th?
I almost feel like we need music for this.
This is we've led up to this moment. This is the climax of the show right here, I guess.
Star Wars Episode 9. Where do we start with this movie, gentlemen? Take it away.
Well, I am certainly looking forward to it. It'll be. I hope at the very least, it's going to be hard to live up to what everybody wants it to live up to, and it won't do it. But I at least hope that it's good enough to go. All right, I can accept that as accept that as the end of this.
Rick, you are the Star Wars super freak. So how excited are you about this one?
I still have not seen Last Jedi, but I am going to see The Last Jedi.
And I know why. I know why you haven't seen Last Jedi. Which we'll keep amongst us. It's nothing bad, but I understand why you haven't seen it. You have to understand, Rick is like he loves the Star Wars franchise, but he loves the original version so much.
You're talking about the first three.
Yeah, the first three.
Well, yeah, I don't even. You know how
4,
we've
5,
talked
6.
about not counting movies after like Aliens. I don't count anything after Aliens. I don't count anything. Well, I didn't.
Yeah.
I didn't count the last three or the middle three.
Rick's creative life is what? What would you say is the pen? Star Wars is the pen of your creative life.
It's right there at the beginning of it.
Yeah. There is a lot to talk about with this one. One, you have J.J. Abrams coming back. Off the success of Force Awakens. Then we had the Rian Johnson movie, which we're talking about, Knives Out, coming out a few weeks before this. So, here's the question. Will the fans reunite behind this film? Because Last Jedi was so divisive. I mean, I don't know what your opinions are, but it was so divisive among the fan base. Will they come back? Because like JJ's back to it. He's directing the film. What's y'all's opinions?
Will Republicans and Democrats come back together? If you've got an answer to that, then you've got my answer. Will the fans? I think from what I've read and from what I can tell, I think that schism is too wide now. Maybe
it was pretty deep.
So. Yeah,
it got surprisingly deep.
Yeah, it did. I didn't, on a personal level, I didn't think there was a need for it to be that deep. I mean, I can see the problems that some people have with it, but to the extent that it went, I'm more disappointed and dismayed at the vitriol that came with it. It's on a ridiculous level.
Well, okay, so just a little context financially. So Force Awakens, of course, look, there's no way Last Jedi was going to capture the cultural zeitgeist of Force Awakens. Mm-hmm. But this does give a little context. Force Awakens made $2.06 billion. It's the third biggest movie of all time. In contrast that to Last Jedi, $1.3 billion. That's a hit.
That is. I didn't realize it was that far off of one another. Now my question is though, and you know how sometimes that I've always thought a lot of times you'll see you won't see what people really thought about a movie until the next movie. And part of me wonders if it's not just the, well, we hated this movie so much. Were some people maybe they didn't get as much of a thrill out of The Force Awakens as we thought they did, because, even if you didn't like this movie, I guess maybe it didn't get the repeat views that the first one did, but it does kind of make me wonder sometimes, well, maybe that wasn't as well liked among people as I thought it was. And I'm talking about the first one.
Well, Star Wars has, of course, all of it, has done some inroads making, with the Mandalorian coming out next year, sometime next year. So they're trying to, repair the damage, real or perceived, whatever it may be, leading up to this. And they've been really tight-lipped about this film. And fairly recently, I don't know if you guys heard this story. Of course, there was that Star Wars fan film that was put out by Star Wars Theory on YouTube, and there's a rigmarole about that Disney wanted the advertising in front of the video, and people revolted on Twitter like, no, that's wrong. They went out and they made this. You don't have any right to claim it. You just have to read the whole story. It's pretty detailed and convoluted. But without getting too much into the details, about a week ago, George Lucas stepped in and pulled his weight and said, look, all this nonsense pretty much got to stop, got behind Star Wars Theory, and now it's like there's no ads, nobody's making any money off of it. Go ahead, I'm supportive of your video, of the fan-made film. So maybe something like that can unite the Force together and bring people back.
Oh, you eternal optimist, you. I can't believe I just said that. I'm talking about you. What happened? Where's that pessimist I know?
I'm not pessimist.
I would love. I hope that you're right. I hope that you're right, because in the end, and look,
it's supposed to be
we
fun.
love movies, right? But in the end, I have to say, you know what? It's only a movie.
Right.
It's only a movie.
It's only a movie. As much as we love to debate them and talk about them, in the end, they're only movies.
Right. Well, some of the things that were done to good lands, the poor actress who
she had to leave social media actually for a while.
Yeah. People are really brave when they're behind a mic away where people can't or up typing on their computer. So,
which we've gone through a whole bunch of movies. So if you had maybe a movie or two or three that you would say that's the movie I'm most aside from Star Wars and Avengers, because
you're talking about for this year? We haven't even talked about it.
What would be your most?
I haven't talked about it because we don't know. And here's this is kind of one of those. Will it be released this year?
Yeah. Okay.
Or will it not? But the one that I would be most interested in is Martin Scorsese's next film, The Irishman, with Robert De Niro, Joe Pesci, Al Pacino, and a host of other fairly decent actors, based on a novel. And I can't remember. It's funny, the name of the novel. The Irishman is at least better than the title. I Heard You Paint Houses is the novel that's based on by Charles Brandt. But this movie, some of the other actors, Harvey Keitel, Ray Romano, Bobby Cannavale, Anna Paquin. And it has to do about a hitman and his involvement with maybe the death of Jimmy Hoffa. And that's the movie I'm probably most interested in. And it just got more interesting because I was looking recently. I'd heard the budget had spiraled. It was like $125 million. Wow. Now there's some reports it could be up to $200 million for.
How do you get that money?
Yeah, where well, I know that one of the things they're going to have to do is de-age our actors again. And I think all the way down to maybe when they're supposedly around 30 years old. And they're going to do it hopefully pretty convincingly. But Netflix actually purchased the rights away for this movie for $100 million, I believe, or $125 million, and then they threw another $100 million into it. And according to Robert De Niro, from what I read, De Niro stated that the movie will be released theatrically, but on a limited release. It almost sounds like, they're going to Roma the thing, like Netflix did this year. So that's just fascinating. The whole thing, just kind of blows my mind, and I'm really looking forward to that. Hopefully it'll be out this year.
Rick, you got one?
Probably John Wick 3. Probably what I'm looking forward to the most.
Have you seen the trailer?
No.
Are you going to see the trailer?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Are you gonna pull a Steve Areno over there and just kind of? Oh no, I can't do it.
That's a good thing. Be like me. We need more me's. So John Wick 3.
I imagine it's going to be, like the other two, just mayhem, chaos.
That'll be a good. Hopefully, it is like that. I enjoy
the running time was over 2 hours on this movie.
Really?
Yeah.
What was the running time on the other two? Do you remember?
I'd have to check for sure, but it seemed like
I wonder if they ran. I don't remember. Because it was so fast.
Maybe there's so much action I didn't realize how.
Yeah, and that's right. It's kind of I'm going to have to check that out because it's so fast that I thought that they were like hour and 40-minute movies.
They seem short.
Right, they did.
Or shorter.
I think the first one for sure was, in that 90-minute to 100-minute, whatever that range is. But yeah, this was over 2 hours.
Wow. My father-in-law fell asleep in that movie. And John Wick too. At the theater, we went to the theater, and I had to nudge him awake. He had forgot to bring. He's very hard of hearing. He forgot to bring, so he with a loud movie like that, he couldn't keep up with it. And he's like,
I was going to take a nap.
Yeah,
make good use of the time. Which John Wick?
So take him to see the third one, and.
Right, and if he needs I guess if he needs some more rest, I'll
Which John Wick did you think was the best? You like the first one or the second one better?
That's a good question.
That's tough. Probably the first one.
Yeah, that's me. I probably lean more to the first one.
The second one, I don't know. Something about the plot just kind of didn't work for me.
Did you like without giving too much away, the world building?
I did.
Yeah. Hopefully, like I said, I've seen only bits and pieces. Hopefully, they'll keep developing that a little bit more. Mm-hmm. That was fascinating.
The what now? I'm sorry.
The world building and John Wick.
Yeah. John
Wick 2.
So, what about yourself? You've asked us. What about you, Steve? What's your?
Well, it's pretty much going to involve something with monsters or horror movies or something. My pick is Godzilla King of the Monsters. Wow. That is my top, most anticipated movie of 2019.
I hope it lives up to your expectations.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I do too, because I'm really rooting for that movie. I love a good monster movie, a good Godzilla movie.
Mm-hmm.
I hope it's. I was one that was kind of a little disappointed with Godzilla from a couple of years ago. It certainly has some good scenes and some good effects, but I hope they do a little bit better job with this one.
There were a lot of things I like about that movie. I thought the first half was great.
It was good. It was certainly better than the second.
Second half, it's still not bad. I enjoyed that movie. It looks amazing, and I just hope they take a lot of the best parts of Godzilla and keep building upon that in Godzilla King of the Monsters, which I think is exactly what they're going to do, because this thing is supposed to be, wall to wall, floor to ceiling, full of monster mayhem, and that is exactly what I want.
There's so much, once again, so much optimism and hope. I hope that the real world doesn't crush that.
I want those listening to feed upon my optimism. Hear my voice. Rally behind my movie cry.
I just don't want to see him moping for the rest of the year.
Yeah, that's right. We'll have to listen to, Godzilla wasn't any good.
And then of course, some of the other movies, like Curse of La Llorona, some of the other horror films. And of course, Avengers and Star Wars stuff. But I I would love to, for those listening to, hey, hit us up on social media. Hit us up on Twitter at Film Nobs. Would love to hear from you. We're on Facebook, Instagram. Would love to actually hear what are your most anticipated movies of 2019. What are some of your concerns about some of these movies of 2019? Is there something that you want to see more of in 2020? We'd love to hear from you. You guys got anything you'd like to add?
I think that's good for me. Like I say, I'm glad we had this time to talk about this, because now I'm more optimistic about the year, I think, than I was when we first started this episode.
I do have one question
Okay.
for you guys and to our listeners out there. Hit us up on Film Knobs, at Film Knobs on Twitter. Do you think the first half of the year or the second half of the year is going to be the bigger part of the year?
Mm-hmm. This is a great question.
There we go.
That's a strong question, because I would have to think about that pretty hard. I think I know myself. I think I do.
Yeah, I think I do.
And do you think it's going to be close?
This is where you get into that number crunching part. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're talking about when a movie actual release and whatever that release date is, all that goes towards that movie.
Right. I think that's the way you've got to do that, right? But then you still would have to, into the next year, take the numbers from the December release into the next
year. Like Star Wars is one of those movies.
Right.
Yeah. Interesting question. Well, you guys got anything else?
I think I'm good.
Well, hey, thanks so much for listening. We absolutely love doing this. We hope you love listening to it and you come back. If you get a chance, hey, subscribe to us on all the platforms. We're on iTunes, SoundCloud, Spotify, Stitcher. We're on YouTube now. We got a YouTube channel starting to grow a little bit. So, hey, we'd love to hear from you. Subscribe and please come back. Check us out next time. We're out.